Welcome to Community Awareness. I'm your host, Donna Kidner-Smith. Thank you for joining us today as we feature local author Chris Sain, author of the book, Dumb Athlete, How My Biggest Fear Became My Biggest Motivator. Thank you, Chris, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
I'm looking forward to this conversation. This is an interesting book with a lot of good information.
Definitely.
What motivated you to write Dumb Athlete?
Well, starting off, I felt like we all have a story, and you never know who your story might inspire, who your story might bless. And so I told myself after overcoming some things in my childhood that if I made it to see 17 years old, that I would one day write a book about it, just to kind of walk people that may not be aware of life of an inner city kid and some of the pitfalls and different things we have to go through to just make it day in and day out. And so my book kind of walks through what some of my struggles were, as well as some of the things that I did to eventually achieve success and reach some of my goals.
So that was in the Grand Rapids area?
Absolutely.
And you attended Ottawa Hills High School?
Yep.
And you graduated what year?
In 2001.
And then from there, where did you go?
I left Ottawa Hills after graduation and I went to Michigan State. At Michigan State, I was a member of the football team. Football, I often say, was my ticket out of the inner city. It helped me to escape my environment, see different things, as well as experience the overall college atmosphere and what that was about.
So you were a football player while in high school?
Yeah, two-sport athlete. I played basketball and football at Ottawa, and then when I got to Michigan State, it was just strictly football, just because the demands on your time was much more greater at the college level than the high school level.
Okay. Well, the title of the book is Dumb Athlete, but you were anything but a dumb athlete.
Absolutely, absolutely. The title is nothing more than a label that oftentimes young black males receive, whether it's a lazy, whether you're a thug, or whether you are a number of different things that we see projected on us day in and day out through the media, through the data, through the statistics, through local television. And so for me, dumb athlete was just one thing that I did not want to be associated with. And so I tell students all around that I applied myself in the classroom the same way I did at being a great athlete, because I wanted to avoid at all costs being considered dumb.
Because so often that is what is attached to it.
Yeah,
yes.
but whenever you happen to have an athletic gift and be a little bit more talented than the others, people tend to think, oh, he's just a great athlete, but I wonder what his grades are like, or he won't be eligible by the time our team play them because I'm sure he's not going to cut it in the classroom. And so I prided myself on being just as great in the classroom as I was on the field and the basketball court. And so I saw that when I applied myself with that much vigor in both areas of my life, I was able to have great success in both areas of my life.
Now, what do you say to the young people today who are saying, okay, I'm going to be an athlete, that is my ticket out, but they're really not asserting themselves or honing their skills and talents in other ways?
Absolutely. Well, I'd say it's called a student athlete, and the student always comes before the word athlete, and that means you're a student first. And so it's imperative that you take care of business in the classroom. You have to approach class every day by first showing up, coming to class prepared, putting effort in your work, because your name is essentially on that paper or that assignment that you're turning in, and you always want your name to reflect well on not just yourself and your family, but others. And so you have to take serious the student part of student athlete before you can even begin to allow your athletic gifts to kind of shine.
Now, you alluded to some of the challenges, obstacles that you encountered as a young person. Are they still real today?
Those obstacles are very, very real today, not just for myself, but for other individuals growing up in the inner city of Grand Rapids and other urban areas, not only in Grand Rapids and Wyoming, Kentwood, but just around the country. And so we often talk about failure. We often talk about poverty. We often talk about being mediocre. Those things are alive and well in a lot of today's youth for various reasons. I often say that many youth today lack hope. They lack a sense of hope and direction on what they want to be, where they want to go, and how to go about accomplishing what it is they want to be in life. And so it's very, very alive and well today.
So what prompted you? You have been motivated. You are successful. Yeah, you're self-sufficient. What accounted for that?
For me, I say that I was a product of my expectation and not my environment.
Say that again one more time.
I say I'm a product of my expectation, not my environment.
And yours obviously then were positive expectations.
Absolutely. I told myself that I expected to be great. I expected to graduate from high school. I expected to graduate from college. I expected to be something and make something of myself, you know, leave a legacy behind that one day others could follow in my footsteps and follow up behind the things that I have blazed a trail in. And so because I had an expectation on myself, I didn't let myself succumb to the things and the ways of the traps that's in the community, the drugs, the violence, the hopelessness, the despair and the failure that we so often see in our neighborhoods. And so although I saw it, although I grew up around it, I said, that won't be me. I won't be one of those guys on the corner. I won't be one of those guys that get taken over by drugs and alcohol. I want to carry myself the right way. I want to be someone that people are okay with emulating. And so those were the type of things that I said to myself. That's the type of mindset that I had at a young age, which I think is really what helped me navigate some of the pitfalls and traps of our community.
Now, did you have that example in your life? I mean, was there somebody who encouraged you, motivated you, who set that example?
I was fortunate to have both parents in the home. I had my mom and dad, and my dad in particular was a great example that I could see day in and day out. Oftentimes the neighborhood kids would come to my house and my father would be the only father figure that many of them had. And not only was he a model for me, but he was a model for my friends and the community at large. And his example day in and day out, seeing him get up, go to work, him be a blessing to others, him give his last to help somebody. All those things are things that I saw, and I said, you know what? He doesn't have the most money. He's not the richest person in the world, but he's still giving of himself, giving of his time. And I see the huge impact that that had on others. And I said, I can replicate and duplicate some of those things in my life, because I'm not rich or I'm not some wealthy, well-off person myself, but you don't have to be to do for others and be a blessing to others.
So what do we say to these young men who do not have that kind of role model in their life? And then along with that, then, when we see selling drugs, getting involved in some of these other less than activities is more lucrative, how do we address that?
Two things. What we say to the young men is, a lot of young men, we have to first understand that they have no direction. Not only do they have no direction, they have no self-identity. So they don't even know who they are as a man, as a boy, really, because many of them haven't put away childish things to become a man. Secondly, they have to be willing and open to seek help. We often say people that don't want to change avoid change agents. Kids today have to seek a mentor, have to seek someone like myself that they may see visible in the community. And if I'm unable to reach out to you, feel free to reach out to me and say, can I talk to you? How did you get to where you're at today? So oftentimes there's a generational disconnect where adults and the youth just kind of walk past each other without ever crossing paths, and we have to do a better job of sharing our experiences with them, letting them know we have been them. We've been where they're at, we've been where they're going, and we have something to offer. And it's a vice versa relationship that has to take place in order for our young people to discover who they are. I also would encourage young people to have a relationship with Christ. That's very huge, and that was very huge for me. I didn't begin to walk with the Lord real heavy until my later years, around 2006. But no matter when it is, I encourage that in all young people that I come in contact with.
So having that role model in front of them is beneficial, whether they're in the home, which is the ideal, or somebody within the community. But to say, hey, what I might be experiencing isn't what I have to have a part of my future.
Exactly. And you also brought up another question about young people seeing drugs and the fast money as a means of and way of living. And I often tell young people the risk that comes with selling drugs, or which we call taking penitentiary chances, is not worth it. It's the success, the rush that you get is going to be short-lived. There's nobody ever in that game that has lived to tell about it or lived as a free person. And so the risk is far too high when you can put in a little work to obtain all it is you want to have in this world. And we have to embrace work. We have to embrace hard work. We have to embrace, I tell myself, I didn't start out on third base. I had to step up to the plate, and I hit the ball and ran all three bases to get to where I got to. And there's not gonna be handouts at every stop. Sometimes you just gotta, pull yourself up by the bootstraps and go after what it is you want. And that's what I mean about being a product of my expectation. I was determined by any means necessary in a positive way to be all that I wanted to be. And I did that in school, I did that in life, I did that in my work career. And at 30 I could sit back and and not rest on my laurels, but be satisfied with where I'm going.
So I think you brought a valuable point that things were handed to you. You had to play the game, so to speak,
Absolutely.
learn the rules, play by the rules. And there were some challenges along the way and lessons learned.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
There were plenty of lessons learned, and it's the lessons that I call them that help you become the person you are today. Without the lessons, the success isn't that sweet. Without the setbacks, you can't have an awesome comeback. And so it's those things that help shape your character. It's those things that help you know who you really are, not in moments that you're sitting on top of the mountain, but when you're at your lowest points. And so the adversity I faced, the disappointments that I faced, those are all the things that helped me become who I am today.
So what prompted you to write Dumb Athlete? I mean, what day or what activity said, I really think I want to write a book?
As a champion of literacy and education, I've often said reading is so key. We often say in our community that if you want to hide something from an African American male, put it in a book, because what that is saying is most likely we don't read. I don't believe that's the case. I believe that if young people had someone that they can identify with in the books, that that had a story that was applicable or that resonated with their life or with some of their experiences, they'll be much more inclined to read. And so I remember going through school, and I wasn't a school guy, regardless of all the degrees I have. I wasn't a school guy. I didn't like school. But at the same time, I said, if school presented things that was of interest to me, I would be much more engaged in it. And so I said, I'm going to share my story with somebody, hopefully schools around the country, and the young people there will at least have something they can relate to. And so early on, I had my oldest brother who he spent nearly 20 years in prison. And I had a next door neighbor of mine, a childhood friend who got killed when I was 13. And those two experiences, experienced them both at a very young age, told me I didn't want to go to jail and I didn't want to end up dead. And that's when sports around 8 years old became very, very important in my life. And I used that whole drive and love for sports to stay clear of drugs, stay clear of gangs, stay clear of negativity, and make sure that I avoid what I saw my brother and my friend experience.
Well, you mentioned across the country. You do some speaking, some traveling
Yes.
across the country.
I've been blessed to, since 2012, travel the country and visit urban schools, colleges, all over, just to speak to students, educators, what have you. And that's been very, very great to be at a place in my life where I can share and impart wisdom or my experiences or innovative ways to connect with people from diverse backgrounds and populations and see people work to implement those things. And so absolutely, I'm currently looking forward to the fall where I start a 100-school college-bound scholar tour where I hit 100 urban schools. One thing I noticed is that when I visit these schools around the country, students will say, Chris, you're the first young black person that's not a celebrity or some type of figure that has ever came and talked to us. And so I can only imagine schools that I haven't hit yet, colleges I haven't hit yet, that has never had somebody that's just a guy next door, but that made it, so to speak, come and just talk to them. And I pride myself on being reachable and accessible. And that's really what I'm doing when I go to these colleges, when I go to these middle schools, high schools, juvenile detention centers, and talk with these young people, is letting them know it's possible and it's okay to have hope and dream again.
What would you say is the number one challenge that young black men are facing today?
Hopelessness. Hopelessness is the number one thing. Because they lack hope, they don't aspire to be much. And so they are okay with being mediocre. They are okay with low living and not tapping into the full potential that all of them have inside of them. One thing that I talk about in my book, but I talk about everywhere I go, it was 3 traits that I noticed in myself that set me apart when I was in college. And it was the fact that because I come from an urban environment, I obtained street smarts. I also had book smarts, and I also had common sense. Those traits are not unique to me, but the difference is so many young people, the ones that's hopeless, they don't tap into the fact that they have those same traits. And so they walk through not using their critical thinking skills, their analytical skills to learn how to make better decisions and solve problems and avoid confrontations. And they just take the simple route to appeal to their peers. And so those are the traits that I believe all of us have in us. But because hopelessness has a strong hold and it has so many of us in bondage, many kids just walk through life without much hope at all.
And not reaching their full potential. You find great delight, great fulfillment in helping others. And very recently you dispersed some money to some young people at Ottawa Hills High School.
Yes, annually I go into the schools. I go into every high school, but in particular because I'm a graduate of Grand Rapids Public Schools, I definitely hit every Grand Rapids Public School, high school, if you will. And I try to catch students doing right. So oftentimes we're focused on the negative aspect of our young men and our young women in the community, and I want to catch students doing right. And so annually I identify young people that are aspiring to go to college, whether it's a 2-year or 4-year college that has a 2.5 GPA or better, that's a part of a student organization. And I try to connect with them in their junior year, going into their senior year, letting them know that somebody is watching you because somebody believes in you. And if you carry out your end of this deal, there may be an opportunity available for you for my nonprofit organization, which is Grand City Sports, to bless you with a scholarship to help you go off to college.
Talk to us about Grand City Sports.
Grand City Sports is a faith-based, community-driven nonprofit organization. It was birthed in 2008. When I got my master's degree, I always asked myself, what could I do more? How could I do more? And I saw different areas that were lagging in our community, and I know how much sports impacted my life, and I know how much education impacted my life. And so my brother and I and my little brother, who was the co-founder, we birthed Grand City Sports, and our mission is to restore and refocus at-risk youth by emphasizing education through sports. So primarily sports is just a hook, but once we get all these young people at our fingertips, we're pouring into them. We are preaching education to them. We're preaching civic responsibility, respect, being good kids, especially many of them that come from single-parent household. and letting them know the role that they need to play as a child of a single parent, and how their parents need their help. And we just using sports as a tool to impart all those things in them. And that is also how we go into the schools as well, and again identify students that's deserving of a scholarship, or that has some aspirations to go on to post-secondary education.
Okay, and I can believe that that was really an extra boost to those young people who are the recipient of it.
Absolutely.
And more recently, one young man that I'm acquainted with who was the recipient of the scholarship, you said you just showed up at his graduation open
Yep.
house? He
Yep.
wasn't expecting it?
No, this young man this year, we pride ourselves on walking alongside students. It's not enough to make it through to college. We want to make sure you get through college. And annually, we have a formal situation set up for the scholarship winner. But this year, we wanted to play it a little bit different. And the winner this year, he had an open house. And I got with members of the group, and we said, how about we surprise this young man? We've been having our eye on him, and knows he's a great kid, and want to do some great things. And we said, let's pop up at his open house with his scholarship, and just kind of fellowship with him and surprise him. And it turned out great. He was surprised, but he was ecstatic about receiving the scholarship and being this year's award winner.
So what, you mentioned your faith definitely, which is key, but as far as motivating every day when you're, stuff happens, life happens,
Absolutely.
and you see things too, what motivates you to just keep pouring out?
I'm motivated by the simple fact that I want to do for those what they didn't do for me. And so I know our people are hurting. I know some of the struggles that individuals are going through. And so if I can wake up and somehow, some way be of help or be of service, then that's just what I set out to do. For me, because I'm blessed, I desire to be a blessing to others, and I feel a social obligation. I feel a duty to my people, to my community, to others in general, just to, if there's a place I can help, I'm willing to do it. It costs me nothing most of the time, but a little bit of time, and it goes so far with people. And when they know that you're genuine and they know you're coming from the heart, there's nothing better than that.
And you wrote from your heart.
Yeah.
Dumb Athlete, How My Biggest Fear Became My Biggest Motivator. Where can we get our hands on this book?
You can get your hands on the book at Amazon.com. You can also visit your local bookstores, Schuler's, Barnes & Nobles. And I like to say, if I've sold out by now, just ask the front desk person for a copy, and they can restock the books. You can get them from me. I have a few left that I can personally sign for individuals that are interested in the book. And so there's a few different ways. It's also available on ebook via Kindle, Nook, iBook, and your Kindle devices as well.
Wonderful. So what did you think about the whole process of writing a book?
The process for me was therapeutic, actually. I thought that reflecting about certain experiences, looking back over my life, because I'm not a guy that really rests on my laurels. I don't really look at things I've done. Sometimes people will say, man, you've done so much at a young age, but I don't see it that way. And so the book gave me a chance to sit down, reflect, kind of relive some experiences, good, bad, and indifferent, that I went through, that I faced, that I overcame, and really put it in a way that resonates with the reader. And so the process was actually therapeutic. It took me about 3 months to write the book, and after going through the whole process, I ended up getting in a car accident, and some other things took place before it was able to be published. But it took about 3 months to do it, and it was just a great time to me.
That's really not very long.
No, not at all. And that's a lot to be said, because it's a memoir, and it's just me reflecting and me reliving vivid stories, and just putting them in a way that can inspire people that reads the book.
The thing that I think that you probably will agree with is this, is that each person, each young person is valuable. So I think so many of us maybe think, okay, to become involved